Hello and welcome to another Pinch Tune FPV episode. Today I'm going to try and touch on a couple topics. I'm going to try and speak a little bit slower because I usually speak way too fast. And I think you're going to learn a couple things today. Keep you entertained. We'll see. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about GoPro mounting options, GoPro Protection, and the filters, and all that kind of stuff, because you know what? Even though we say we fly for ourselves and nobody else, we do like to share our footage to show our buddies what we've been doing and show off our skills and maybe do some cinematic stuff and so on and so forth. So ways of mounting your GoPro are extremely important, as well as protecting them, because we all know they're very expensive, so we don't like to go around smashing them. So we're going to touch on that topic. I've been very busy. I just posted a video this morning about just some freestyle footage at a building. Hopefully I'm developing some sort of chronological order in this channel to where the episodes are not simply one-offs, to where there's a certain development and you can see a trend going and kind of develop this sort of like connection between you and me. And not only do you learn something, but stay entertained and kind of like get a story going as we progress. Because if this channel keeps up, I've kept it up for the last couple of years, 2-3 more years, who knows, we'll see how the development of this hobby keeps going. The last couple of weeks have been very busy. The end of the month, beginning of the month is always super busy for me at work. But I also preparing for the MultiGP Qualifiers. I am not a racer. I come from doing freestyle. I've been racing quite a bit for the last year or so, but you know, I'm not fast, but I'm trying my best. Anyway, I put a lot of practice in. I went and did 2 events, one at LCFPV 3 weeks ago, and I managed to pull, I think, a 3 lap 66, so 1 minute 66, which is not very good. And then I wanted to do better, so I went to OGR, Open Grove Raceway, and we did another event this weekend, and my goal was basically to improve my time. My goal was actually a 3 minute 57, a 3 lap 57, and unfortunately I didn't get that. I almost had it because I had 1 lap, at the very end I had 1 lap 19 seconds, and I was at the same pace for the 3rd lap, and I clipped the gate, and that cost me 3 seconds and went back up. So eventually I ended up at 3 laps 1 minute, which moved me up like 80 spots to 352, I think. Sport class, out of 1,000, I guess that's not bad, but it's nowhere near the top. Point is, I had a lot of fun and I could tell I was getting faster. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of quads to take to a race and break, you know. I was only able to, I wanted to bring 3, one of them would not cooperate. That was the one that I posted on Instagram that I was trying to build a parts bin backup and didn't work out. I smoked it basically. But then I brought 2 FPV Flight Club Neutrons to the race because I had destroyed the 3rd one the week prior. So with 2 quads, you're like, I gotta take it easy, be careful. I don't want to break it before you even get into the qualifiers. We were doing 3 or 4 rounds of practice. So by the time we got to the actual qualifiers, I started taking it slow. And by the 3rd heat, it's 5. I started turning up the heat. I should have started a little bit earlier. I might be able to break my goal. But anyway, 4th and 5th heat, I had 2 quads, so 1 for each heat, whatever, if I broke them. So I went as hard as I could at the time, and yeah, I was able to pull off a 3 lap 1 minute, best I could. But anyway, we'll see next year. I'll try to do better. Going back to freestyle for now. But I want to show you that video because I'm not going to post a standalone. I don't think it's amazing to just post a standalone. So it's like 45 seconds so you can see one of my best laps, and then we'll go back to what we have going on here. So check it out now. back. So let's get back on topic now. Let's go ahead and talk about the GoPro mounting solutions, what I've learned over the years, what I recommend, what I don't recommend, and we'll go from there. This is not scripted, so I'm making it up as I go from what I know in my head, and hopefully it comes out understandable. This is a session 5, very popular, discontinued, but we all try and find them because they are rare and very good and lightweight. And then the Hero 7 that we all know and a lot of us have been flying, but weighs a lot more. I still prefer flying the Session 5 for freestyle because the quality of the video is really good enough. And unless I'm trying to get something really outstanding, cinematic, anything like that, then I'll use this. But because the Session 5 is so much lightweight, it flies so much better in my opinion, this is what I try to fly. To give you an example, this mount is a very popular mount when you just have a full TPU printed mount that attaches to the quad, and you just insert the camera through the side, you know, pressing it in like this, or some are from the front, and it's very convenient, it is protective, and it just is there, so it works out really well. I use them a lot. I use it on these 2 reverbs, and I'll use it on the GoPro 7 as well. For example, this Hyperlow RS Plus, which has a mount that that protects the entire GoPro, and it's for a Hero 7. This one here was printed by Brain 3D, and then I have this one, for example, for a reverb that was printed for me by BMC 3D. They're buddies, by the way. But even though this is very convenient, it is not necessarily my favorite type of mount. I actually prefer just having a GoPro armor like this guy here, right? And then I just strap this to the quad. In this case, it could be with foam, or it could be with a TPU, what they call a couch. And you just, I'm kind of uncomfortable here because I'm trying to do it in front of the camera, but it's actually normally very easy. Let me go ahead and do it over here like I normally would do it. Okay, so this is my preferred method of mounting them. I just strap the GoPro on. And the reason I like this is because I usually use ND filters almost like 100% of the time, unless I'm flying really late in the day or early in the morning. And when you have a mount like this one is actually equipped or ready for an ND filter. It has a slight bit of space in the front, and it has a little slot, and you just insert the ND filter in the front here, and then you slip the camera in and you have the ND filter on there. But every time you have to switch quads, you have to pull the camera out. It's a bit of a pain to just pull the camera out. Every time you grind the camera against the ND filter, there's a chance you could scratch it. So if you fly one quad or have a GoPro for each quad, and you don't have to be taking it in and out, or even removing ND filters and changing the ND filter densities, this is good for you. But for me, I like to switch between quads often. For me, it's a lot easier to simply strap this off, move it right out with the ND filter and everything on it, and just strap it to another quad. Now, you may be thinking like about the weight difference, and I've checked it. This doesn't have a strap, and the whole thing is 1 unit, so it can be a little bit lighter. This is ever so slightly heavier because you have the TPU base, you have the strap, and you have a full encompassing GoPro armor. It is not much heavier. I think it's like 3 or 4 grams, maybe 5 at the most. One way to go lighter is if you use foam at the bottom instead of using TPU, and in that case, actually the weight is exactly the same as this guy. Now, with the GoPro 7, things change because not only is the camera considerably heavier, it is also bigger, and if you want to protect it, you're going to end up with a bigger case, which means more weight, which is something that nobody likes on the 7, but it's the camera that GoPro is making, so we have to deal with it. If you compare this case mount to, say, this option, I believe it's about, I would have to detach it, but if I recall correctly, it's about 15 to 20 grams more. So it's quite a bit of a difference. There are some even that have a bit of lens protection in front of it, and those are even heavier. I ordered these without any lens protection, and the reason is I like to run this sort of setup And this setup, what it has is it's a bumper for the lens, and you can get them plain, but the way I run them, I actually put an ND filter at the front. And because I almost always use an ND filter, this is the perfect thing for me. And what I do is I simply slip it in like that. And as you can see, the case and the ND filter bumper thingy are separate. You can even do two different colors. I do photography partly as professionally, so for me, like, black is a big deal. Like, most photographers use black because it hides stuff. We'll go kind of crazy with all kinds of colors for our things, but even this guy here has ruined some videos for me before when I've had glare of orange going into my lens. So normally I like to run black, and for this setup, which would be cinematic, I definitely want to run black at the front, even if the case is a different color. Another lightweight option is the Ethics FaceHugger, Ethics FaceHugger, and this is nice because it offers some protection, but it's open in the back. So basically, frontal impacts are very well protected, and the back is exposed, so that you end up with less weight, which is a big difference in weight. I think about 10 or 15 grams less, quite a bit. I'm not weighing anything here because, well, actually I can. Let's do it. Let's go ahead and weigh the ones that I do have detached. So the FaceHugger here only adds, without cutting the wedge, you would have to put the camera on, but if you use foam, it could be like 3 grams plus the strap, 5 grams total. This thing weighs 10 grams versus, let's say, this red full TPU mount for a hyper low RS. This is 31 grams, so it's 20 grams in difference, which is a lot. Unfortunately, the Ethics one is designed to use the stick-on ND filter that goes straight on the camera lens, and that one's good because it has an ND4, I think, has some density to it, but it sticks on. But because I like to change filters a lot, I ran it for a while, but I didn't like it, so I ended up with this setup rather. It would be kind of cool to have this open. I'm actually gonna cut one of these open so that I can run this with one of these when I want to go really lightweight. So this is a good option. It also has these little latch thingies there so that you can strap around it and your strap won't slip. This is very good. My only concern with this one is that protection is very minimal. And what I mean by that is, like, one of my biggest fears when I'm running a GoPro 7 and I don't have a battery. Oh, here we go. Let me look it up. Hold on. So one of my biggest fears when I'm running a GoPro 7 is the battery sits behind it like this, right? And in a crash, that battery will ram into the back LCD screen on the GoPro and break it. And game over for the GoPro. So when you have something like this and it's open at the back, the chances of breaking it are higher. Even though, honestly, sometimes these kind of protection things are false protection. Like, there's on small bumps and small crashes, yes, they offer some protection, but a lot of the crashes that we have are so hard that no matter what you have, you're gonna break the camera regardless. So it's up to you to decide what's important for you. Ultimate performance, very low weight, or having a little bit more risk and to break the GoPro, adding more weight for more protection, but then of course you start adding more weight to the quad, which causes it to fly not as good, and you also will end up breaking other parts on the quad because of the extra weight. I mean, the extra weight difference in this could cause you to break an arm that you might have not broken if you were going lightweight. That's all stuff that you have to kind of like gauge what's important to you and balance it out, and then make a choice and then go for it. For me, I run different kinds, so it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm gonna go really risky, I'll run this. Well, in that case, I'll run the Session. But if I'm gonna go kind of risky, I'll run this. If I'm just gonna go out to shoot something that I know I'm not gonna have a big crash and I want lightweight, then I'll run this. Simple as that. There's another option, however. This option is when I'm running on the Super G here, and as you can see, it has a very slim mount, and all it does is strap around the GoPro. I'm gonna put a link to a video where I actually flew with this exact setup here so you can check it out. And this you'll run if you're not worried about breaking the GoPro, because it offers no protection in the front, and you want very lightweight. It is comparable to this, possibly a little bit heavier, but this you still have to use straps and you have to have a wedge and have a place to mount it. Where this already has your built-in angle and everything's fixed to the quad and the whole deal. This was printed for me by my friend Brady, Laughing FPV. It's actually on Thingiverse. I'll put a link in the description for it. And it is actually inspired by Hyperlow, because Richard had one design for his quads and looks exactly like this, and he actually sells it with his kits. And somebody adapted it for the Super G, and here we have it. I think it's a very, very cool design. There's different options for your bottom here with different angles. You can pick one and print whichever you want or want to try. Just go for it. The link will be in the description. I'm actually going to show you how that fits. So this guy essentially slips on it under like that, and because it's so narrow, it's not a lot of material, it actually goes in pretty easily. And you might think it's not secure, but it's very secure. It's not going to come out of there. It's just fine. And it's a really good alternative. This quad is powerful, but it's already heavy because it's so big. And I don't go out crashing long-range quads into rocks and stuff the way I fly them. So for me, for that setup is excellent. There are other options. We have, I already forgot about speaking slowly. I've probably been racing through this thing. This option here by BMC 3D is also for that Super G, and it's cool because it has an adjustable base, and you can adjust from, I believe, 30 degrees or 25 degrees, 35 to 40, 45%. I don't know, but it has some adjustment, and it's cool because of that. Unfortunately, I'm such a weight snob that I noticed how heavy this thing is, and for some guys it'll be fine, but I wanted to shave as much weight as I could on this thing, so I ended up trading it in, or changing it for this. Also, I wanted the pink because the motors are pink, but for some reason it's a little dull, this pink, and I didn't like it that much, so I ended up going for red. Red is better anyway. Nothing against BMC. He prints a lot of my stuff, and he does an awesome job, and I love this. Like this, he printed this for me to put the GPS on there, and this antenna mount, and I mean a bunch of the stuff. My prints for my reverbs are all done by him. This is Brain, and then a couple other guys have been printing for me too. Danimal FPV, he's got printed me some. Oh, actually here I have it, this fixed camera mount for the FPV camera. There you can see it. It is actually fixed at 25 degrees, which is what I fly for freestyle. And he designed that one for me to fit this frame, and printed me a bunch. So if you wanna hit him up, I'll put a link to it's Danimal FPV on Instagram. I'll put a link in the description as well. He's a good guy to contact if you want stuff out of Thingiverse printed or custom stuff designed. See, I've been wanting to get into 3D printing, and I eventually will, but printing is important, but the design of the product is even more important, because if you don't have something good to print, then you're going nowhere. So having somebody around that you can just pay him and design something for you and print it is very convenient. And I've been so busy, I just haven't had time to get into full-on 3D printing. Eventually I will, but for now I'm just going this route. I think I covered almost everything. Some guys run the GoPros just plain like that with no protection. Again, like I said, a lot of this 3D printed TPU armor and stuff, I believe it does offer some protection, but sometimes it is a false sense of security, because you hit it just right, it's gonna break anyway. And oftentimes the GoPros will break the lenses and whatnot, but most of the thing that actually breaks the GoPros is actually the crushing, and it breaks inside. Like the frame itself breaks, cracks, and then the components inside start touching or whatever and get detached, and it breaks. And that is something that will happen with or without protection, because the impact, if you land upside down on concrete, is going to crush the insides and break the camera. The LCD screens in the back will crack regardless. So if you find, like for me, maybe it's placebo, but anyway, the point is that having this on gives me the confidence to go harder, fly better, because I think I have more protection, then yeah, it's totally worth it. Go for it. It's important that you feel comfortable with what you have, so you'll fly good. Another thing I wanted to show you is Steele has been running this, one of these things, behind the GoPro on his cinematic rigs, is because he uses foam, so the camera always wants to tilt back in order to make it go forward less than 20 degrees for slower shots. He puts this behind the camera. It's a good idea. I haven't tried it yet, but I might try it one of these days. Last thing I want to talk about is ND filtering. ND filtering, I'm sure you've heard of it already because it's big and everybody talks about it, and it's like the big thing about running GoPros in FPV, but it is nothing new. ND filtering is neutral density, and it's used in photography all the time for many years, and it's not something new, even though for us FPV guys it is something new. What it does is it basically filters the amount of light that can get to the sensor, and that helps reduce the shutter speed. You want to have a controlled shutter speed, because a shutter speed that's too fast can give you jello, shakes, and then also makes the video look choppy. There are actually some rules for slowing down your shutter speed. I want to thank Leviathan for this one. He told me that you want to have twice your frame rate. So if you're shooting 25 frames per second, which is what this video is at, I should be shooting at 1/50th of a second. If you are flying and shooting 30 frames per second, which is very common, you want to have 1/60th of a second. So again, 30 frames per second, 1/60th of a second shutter speed. And for us guys that fly a lot of 60 frames per second, what do you want? 120. So 1/120th of a second. That's the normal rule. I sometimes try to push that lower to get more blur, but that is kind of the sweet spot right there. And in order to get that, if there's bright light outside, you need to filter the light that comes in. Doing 30 frames per second requires you to run more filtering, because there's less frames, which means there'll be more time of light hitting each of those frames, if that makes sense. The faster frame rates, there's less time where that frame is exposed, so you tend to not have such a problem with overexposure. But to fly in the middle of the day with 30 frames per second, you definitely need to use filter. Normally I use ND8, ND16, and ND32, which I believe this is what it is, which is very dark. So late morning, late afternoon, late morning and late afternoon, I'll fly an ND8. As soon as it starts getting more towards noon, 1, 2, 3 p.m., I'll use an ND16, and I'll even push it down with an ND32. TBS has a good ND32. It's very neutral, it's very gray. I love the Sun Butter filters by Pyrodrone. They have a little bit of a yellow tinge to them. And when I say yellow, it's like warmer, very slight. You can't really tell until you compare it with the TBS ones, but I prefer warm footage, so I like those quite a bit. But if you want something really neutral, all the TBS filters are great because they're very neutral. They're just great. Excuse me. And you get ND2, I believe, ND4. Maybe I'm wrong about the 2, but you get 4, 8, 16, and 32. The bigger the number, the darker it is. And for FPV, I don't think we fly anything darker than 32. But for other purposes of photography, there are darker filters. And the idea is to really push down the shutter speed. For example, let's say you're shooting a fountain in the middle of the day. And I'm talking about static photography here. And you want to see that water flowing. Well, and you also want some depth of field. You can't do that without an ND filter, because your shutter speed is going to be so fast that each water droplet is going to completely stop. So if you want that blur, then you're going to have to put a very dark filter on it, so you can have some depth of field, let's say f4, even less, f2.8, whatever. But the point is that you want to have less light going in there, so you can lower that shutter speed and you can get that water flow. If you guys ever seen those photos in magazines or calendars where somebody's like shooting a beach scene or a bay, and you see all this water like foaming around rocks, like it looks almost like surreal. that is just slow shutter speed. All that movement turns into soft material, but then everything else is still super sharp. And all you get that with slow shutter speed and filtering. So there you have it, guys. I think I've covered everything. Here's another GoPro armor for a Session 5. This is also by Brain 3D. This one, by the way, has space for ND filter at the front. I don't run any cases or any GoPro mounts that I cannot put filters on. All of them have to have that. Because for me, it's very important. I'm very, very picky of how my footage looks. Very, very picky of exposure, of my shutter speed, that I have to have the ability to do filtering. I have some videos where like I've shot at 5:30 in the morning. I'll also put a link to that one. It was the same day that I flew this, and I put it earlier, but it was much earlier in the morning, and I was flying with no filter at all. But I'm talking about 5:30 in the morning. That's the only times I won't run a filter. Last hour of the day, first hour of the morning. That's it. Okay, I think that's it. Hopefully I've covered everything there is to cover about GoPro mounts. That'll help you choose, try different things, see what works for you. Don't be afraid to experiment. There's all kinds of options, and nothing is just absolutely right for everybody. And I've told you what I prefer. I prefer the detached method with the strap, but something else might be better for you. So go ahead. That's it. I appreciate you sticking by. Hopefully next year I'll do better on the MultiGP. I'm going to keep practicing, even though I'm still focusing on freestyle most of the time, but I'll do more racing practice so I can get better. I appreciate sticking around. Thumbs up to this video. It's helping the channel a lot. I like it to keep growing so I can keep putting more content, and that's only going to happen if you subscribe, you like, and share. I'll see you in the next one.